you have to learn how to observe when you're dating someone and not observe how they treat you. Because I think when they treat you, obvious naman, diba, nagpapa-impress sila. Watch how they spend their money outside of you. What gifts they give their family. Do they even give gifts to their family? How they pay for their rent. Napuputulan ng kuryente. I think those are red flags.
Allow me to welcome our guest from the Thirsty and 30 podcast. All right. So we will be sharing together tips and our personal experience on smarter love. So allow me to welcome the one half of the Thirsty and 30 podcast, which is Bea. So allow me to welcome Bea to the Sweet Debt Proof Life Network. Hello.
Nik, how are you?
I want to get into the juicy stuff already. And, in general, like, how has it been with you, dating during this pandemic? Because I know it's both challenging and interesting. So tell me all the juicy stories.
Money is like one of those things. It's a deal breaker or a deal maker. And I guess the same with dating during the pandemic. You really realize a lot of things. I've loved virtual dating. I don't know about you, but like I love getting to know someone without the frills. So for me, it's a pro, but definitely there are moments of frustration when you want to hold someone's hand.
You've mentioned with me, of course, we've had our own conversations, our previous like chikahan, and you've kind of like been testing the waters, like who are the right kind of people in this kind of dating scene, right? So how do you gauge like, okay, medyo worth it siya bigyan ng medyo mas mahal na gift? How do I set the budget to make sure na hindi siya overboard?
I always go based on my budget anyway. So I do have a gift budget per month. So I don't know if this is like the jar logic. I think it was in How to Be a Millionaire. And it said like you can split your expenses depending on needs, playtime, education, and there's a gift one. So kung pasok yung guy sa budget na yun, then okay. But it has to go both ways. If that person doesn't give you gifts, then wag mo na siya bilan, diba? Because we meet some girls in our show where they keep giving. And the guy doesn't even return the favor. The guy's just saying thank you. So, red flag na yun.
Noted with thanks na lang ang sabi ng Migay. For me naman, being in a relationship, especially if you've been together for a long time, you kind of have to gauge, you kind of have to be transparent with each other. Kasi sa simula, parang you're like, okay, let's spend on trips, let's spend on whatever. Pero pag matagal na kayo and you have like long-term goals together, you kind of want to be like open to them na also to your love language also. Right? Parang, are you the type of person na talagang your number one love language is gifts, then maybe pour into that? Or like for me, it's quality time. So like for me, as long as we're just like chilling, having a good conversation, that's already like a good enough date for me, Speaking of like dates and like splurging on certain trips, can you share like the most expensive date or trip that you've had that was totally worth it?
Wow. Okay. Maybe in my long-term relationship, I was with someone for 10 years. We definitely went through a lot of trips. Like we went to Malaysia together, even dinners. And the weekend would be very expensive. In Australia, it's so expensive to dine out. I think those meals are always good. They're always valuable to me. But because I'm a foodie, yun yung medyo magastos stage. And now that I think about it, dapat pala sinave ko na lang since hindi na kami. So, biglang may regrets. But no regrets.
Siyempre, di mo naman pinredict na after this trip, eventually, you're gonna not be together anymore, diba? So at least, like, you enjoyed that trip and, like, that worth it naman siya.
Like, if I fall in love with someone, medyo nabubudol talaga ako. So, it's important that at least if I look at that week, okay, hindi ako nabudol this week. That way, it's like, okay, good job, Bea. Hindi ka nabudol ng pag-ibig this week.
What were those na you feel like are really helping you now para nga hindi ka quote-unquote mabudol when you're really like into the relationship?
I would say I look at my money once a week and then I look at it on a monthly basis. And then I have goals. Like I have goals for the week and stuff and that really helps me. Parang tingnan mo lang, diba? Pwede ka naman. Sometimes kasi ayaw mo tingnan kasi alam mong alam mo yung magastos ka that week. Yung ayaw, yung in denial ka. Like whether you did a lot of grab food for the week or you bought like a bikini you don't even need kasi hindi ka pwede mag-beach. Yeah, so me looking at it once a week just keeps me sane. Sometimes I have homework. Like let's say I want to learn how to invest or look into property. I read about it. But I'm not the fastest. I'm not like people that are, they're really obsessed with money. To me, it's important that everything is accounted for and then I have room to grow. I had my stage at when I was 20s na parang akala mo end of the world na lahat ginagastos ko.
We kind of have to go through that stage na parang gastos lang tayo ng gastos and then realize like, teka lang, parang kailangan ko i-reevaluate yung life ko, like how I spend my money, and like the fact nga that you mentioned that like every week you check on your finances, that's already like a big deal because for some people, they don't check on their finances after like 5 years and they're like, oh, damn, like I'm screwed. I think that's also like a good practice. I mean, when it comes to like dating also, like you think that it's just in general, like, all of the things that you spend. But pag-isipan din, like, is this person worth spending your money on, right?
Yes. I think that's important because I am the type that I am so warped up in romance na I would do anything. Like,
anong story naman yan? Parang may hugot eh. Parang gusto namin malaman. What is that? Like, can you share like one instance?
I guess, like, for example, my ex-boyfriend, I would say that I think you have a question about like love or money. I definitely chose love over money to the point na like wala nang sense because at that time I was working a corporate job and then we had a restaurant together and money was just I was getting so many offers that were really good that I thought money was like I was in like a 6-figure like a good salary. Now I thought na money is bottomless and that you can always earn money. So at that time I would just spend on experiences, dinners, both of us. But then, yung type kasi nung isang tao, he's really the type who makes and spends. He's not a saver. Ginaya ko rin siya. I was like, okay, I can make money and then I'll just spend it. And then, babalik naman yan eh. Na-in-love ka nga, pero...
butas naman yung bulsa mo.
Yeah! If I'm having a good time with someone, I don't really think so much of how much things cost, which is not a good idea, right?
Like that you pointed out na parang because your ex-boyfriend then was like more of like a spender, like what he was earning, like he's just comfortable with spending it. So you kind of mirrored that behavior then. So I think that's also an unconscious thing, right? When you're in a relationship, you forget that when you're in a relationship, you kind of mirror each other. You become the person also. Kasi madalas kayong magkasama. So if their money habits aren't that great, you also like adapt that without even knowing it. Riding on that, I also want to dig deeper into that because who do you think should pay the dates, and whether you're just in the dating scene or in a relationship, and what would you consider as a healthy dynamic?
Do you know what? This was something I really made a mistake about because we never sat down and really talked about money and how we wanted to handle it. We had separate bank accounts, but we had certain shared expenses like living expenses and then the business. But we never really sat down and talked about it. But we had an understanding on whoever was earning more or could contribute would contribute. It was okay, but I think towards the 10 years, I realized that now that I look back at it, we didn't have the same money values or we never had check-ins like once a week or once a month. We just went with it. And I think in the end, there was a lot of resentment between two people because I felt like I gave a lot, monetary and other things. And he gave a lot in terms of time and also money. I think that was the issue. We never ever touched base on money. We just enjoyed each other's company too much. And so when things got really tough, we weren't ready for it.
Yeah. How serious like the money really comes into play, basically.
Yeah, like, planning for future and then, or even like paying for certain things becomes stressful. Yeah, so parang lahat na pag-awayan namin because we weren't saving for a rainy day, I think.
I like what you mentioned about the money values, right? Like people don't really consider that kasi we all have, like, what is your non-negotiable traits in a person? You don't really put there, like, top of mind, walang utang, not living paycheck to paycheck. Like, you don't put it there. Like, you just say, like, she's family oriented or whatever it may be, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, as early as now, I mean, from someone coming from that relationship, I think a lot of people would learn from that. Like, if you are really thinking about, are you really fit for the long term, you have to make these uncomfortable money conversations, right? Because you might be wasting each other's time or wasting each other's money, which is worse.
I think you should know the quality of life you want to live and see how a partner will fit into that. Because if ako kasi masyado ko independent, yung parang feeling ko kaya ko lahat. But at the end of the day, if you're living with someone who won't fit the lifestyle, kasi let's say I want to stay in a nice hotel, but the person can't afford to stay in a nice hotel, diba parang naging sugar mommy ako. Kasi ako yung magbabayad. But then, so parang now I think about it. I'm not so concerned about the paycheck, but having the same quality of life would be very important.
Probably for some people here, I mean, you won't be able to, like, let's say first few days, you can't be like, so how much do you earn? Or like, you probably can't ask that right away. But like, medyo mafe-feel mo kung paano yung dates nyo. I mean, obviously, sana yung guy isn't so like pretentious, but like, I mean, ako personally, I can tell like how this person feels like whenever we go on specific dates, how we hang out. So parang there pa lang, you really, I mean, it's hard, but you kind of have to see the red flags as soon as you can. With me, I remember like, yung sa boyfriend ko, sabi ko, ano magiging deal breaker sa'yo kung like, yung first date natin? Sabi niya, kung maarte ka, tsaka high maintenance. Parang ganon, kung maarte ka, tas pag ang dami kong arte sa pagkain, arte sa restaurant, ganyan-ganyan. So, I mean, like, ako for me, I mean, I'm super like low maintenance. People might not take that, but like, madali lang ako pasiyahin when it comes to like dates. Like, quality time is fine with me. So, that's why I super agree with what you said na, like at the end of the day, it's about like making sure that what you guys are interested in like really fit, which involve financially, diba? Like, kung gusto mo na, kung masaya kayo na just having picnics, going to the parks and not spending a lot, like sure. But then mamaya yung isa may resentment na actually gusto ko talagang mag-travel, ganyan-ganyan. But you don't talk about it. What do you think are those deal breakers, regarding how your date or your potential partner would deal with their personal finances? Parang, okay, let's stop it here.
Number one, pag inutangan ka. Tapos
oh my God!
Hindi naman ako inutangan. I think a couple of red flags is like if you're not aligned with how you want to approach money. So I think when you start to get serious, if you're living together or you're married already, or before marriage dapat, diba? Kasi mamaya pa. Find out how they save for their money, if there are vices, if there are luxuries that they spend for, if there are debts, how do they manage to pay that? I've been doing a lot of research on prenups as well. So I think just having the money conversation is important. And kung makwenta, if they paid 100 for this, kailangan nasa na yung 100 mo. Ganon.
Yun nga, parang sometimes we get blinded by love. Na parang we don't see, like, oh, I love him. So, like, I'm willing to do X, Y, Z. But then, like, you don't know that your savings are on the line, your values are on the line. I think for me, one of the deal breakers, I mean, of course, the ones you pointed out aligned with that. But another thing would be, which is going to be a simple one, but then sometimes it can really be something that can eventually be something negative for me, at least, is like if that person is not grateful. Like if
that's
you
good.
But like if you're spending so much time together, whether you treat that person or you have a good time, like they're appreciative of what you've done for them, or just having known that you had a good like company at that time. Like if they're kind of like entitled to it, I'm just like, okay, so I'm entitled to be in your presence right now. Thanks, but no thanks.
Okay, diba? I like that. I'm gonna add that to my list. Pag hindi marunong mag-thank you. Tama yan.
Medyo, I would say, like, it really has to be mind and heart. I think it goes hand in hand with money. Sometimes we spend based on emotion. Like, kunyari, we're stressed, we're, like, not in a good place, and we just end up shopping something. I think it also relates with how we also deal with relationships.
That you have to learn how to observe when you're dating someone and not observe how they treat you. Because I think when they treat you, obvious naman, diba, nagpapa-impress sila. So, in terms of money, since we're talking about money, watch how they spend their money outside of you. what gifts they give their family. Do they even give gifts to their family? How they pay for their rent, kung hindi palaging late sila sa bills, napuputulan ng kuryente. I think those are red flags.
People say also, like, you have to look at how the person treats their mom. Like, because that's a good telltale sign, I mean, na parang, okay, she's probably going to treat me the same way. I mean, someone also asked here, I like this.
I love these questions.
I know it's kind of super insightful pa nga. How do you encourage your partner to be better with their finances?
I would say having a really curious mind and a growth mindset is important here because, for example, I was virtually seeing someone, I mean, not completely virtually, but I had kind of a situationship, whatever you call it, with someone that really wanted to make themselves better. So in a way, we talked about money a lot on what our goals are. So that's how you can encourage it. You can read, share some articles with them, but you cannot force them to think like how you are. Because I always have this conversation with women na parang, how do I get the guy to mature more? Parang, how do you get them to, he's so immature. I'm so mature. I was like, hindi ganon. I think you do it yourself. You stick to the habits. And then you tell the person, be transparent with them. I look at my money once a week, an hour, and they go, oh, that if they say that sounds cool and I want to know more, and you can go, look, I'll take you through what I do for 30 minutes and you can apply it on your own. Syempre, huwag ka magpabudol. Like, you have your goal. Just because they bet all their money on Bitcoin doesn't mean you have to. Do what you feel is right. So it's about being curious and then sharing information with each other and not be condescending.
I also agree na guys, they don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be forced to do anything. Like even if
Give it up.
diba? Like even if they value you, they value your opinion, but then if you tell them like do this, do that, do this, like the more they won't do it. So like ako, I mean guys, I'm just saying this from my experience. Okay, so I met my long-term boyfriend now 5 years ago. I was like 21 or something. So I learned na parang it's better if I just kind of subtly mention it. Like, oh, I do this. How about you? Parang hindi yung parang, alam mo, gawin mo to.
I love that. Yung parang may palandi pa. Like, I think that's important. Let's say the other person likes to read. Like, what are your favorite books on money? I'd love to add it to my list. Yan, yung mga ganyan lang. Subtle lang.
Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes I'm like, money mindset coach ako, pero hindi ko naman kino-coach yung boyfriend ko because it's kind of weird, diba? So I just tell him like, oh, this is what works for me. But for me, what matters is like, my boyfriend is a saver, although I do not want to impose like, oh, you should save a higher percentage, or you should like put more investment on this. Like, parang he knows what I just make kwento. It's very good to have that kind of playful dynamic so that it doesn't feel like you're like a teacher or you're like a mom that in a relationship.
Definitely. There's nothing that's going to turn off a man more than telling him what to do. I think it's like definitely castrating the man for sure. Yeah.